Hello everyone. On this channel, I feel that information about what is happening in China is often not correctly conveyed to countries other than China, so I will be disseminating the information I have gathered in English. I'm getting information from multiple media, so I'd be happy if you could comment on the content of the video. Also, English is not my native language, so I use an AI speaker to create the voice to convey the information correctly. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel and support us. First of all, I would like to start by talking about what information sources I collect information from every day. There are several sources of information that are crawling every day. It is the internet media, information of people who personally send information, blogs, etc. When it comes to what kind of information source I refer to as an information source on the internet, there are times when opinions are divided when a story involving China that attracts a lot of attention comes out. For example, one story that has come up many times so far is that Xi Jinping will be overthrown. At a conference, it was said that Xi Jinping would be hanged and removed by the internal forces of the Communist Party. There have been articles about Xi Jinping being expelled, and there have been stories about whether Xi Jinping has been taken into custody. At that time, there are cases where such information is probably false for some reason, and there are information sources that say, Xi Jinping has been overthrown and something terrible has happened. The moment I saw that article, I didn't know which one was correct. After a while, it turns out that the person who thought it was a false alarm and analyzed it was right. Only the media and individuals who have repeatedly conducted such analyses and disseminated information on an individual basis continue to refer to it. By continuing to do so, the media that conducts highly accurate analysis and the individuals who disseminate information have remained. Therefore, I usually look at multiple sources of such information and introduce them in English. People who openly publish a wrong story, often for the purpose of attracting attention, and then continue to talk about China without correcting it, are unreliable. Until a few years ago, there were many people in Japan who said that if China were to lead the world economy in the future, it would overtake Japan, overtake the United States, and become the top runner in the world. So I remembered the people who said such things and categorized them as untrustworthy. If you try to listen only to the information of those who did not send such information, I think that you will be able to make the right judgment naturally. It's not just about the Chinese economy, but during the Trump administration, for example, there were people who said that if Trump stopped supplying China with semiconductors, China would start making the world's most advanced chips on its own. Increase. Semiconductor manufacturing is not an easy task. But someone once said that China will become a semiconductor kingdom in the future. At that time, China announced that it would invest a huge national budget to develop its own chips. There were people who had no knowledge of semiconductor production, but just looked at the size of the national budget and said that China would lead the world in semiconductors. If you look at the current situation in China, you will understand what was right. I don't think it's a good idea to listen to people who openly say something wrong and then don't correct it. At one time, when the Japanese media and other media were arguing that China would lead the world economy from now on, the foreign media found it extremely difficult to raise funds in the Chinese real estate industry. It was reported that China will be sluggish because there are many companies raising funds at high interest rates. As you all know, the Evergrande Group name has become a hot topic in Japan, and the Evergrande Group still exists. In reality, it's a complete zombie company. With hundreds of lawsuits in China, it's a wonder they're still alive. However, if it goes bankrupt, it will have a big impact, so it probably still exists due to political judgment. However, it was so bad that anyone with proper information could understand what was going on. A few years ago, the Japanese media was only talking about the Chinese economy doing well. Therefore, I think there were many people in Japan who did not think that China would stagnate. It's about what the next problem will be. I think that people who have acquired the information correctly already know about it, but in Japan, It is a part that many people have not pointed out yet. China's real estate industry is in serious trouble now. There are many companies in the real estate industry in China, but unless zombie companies are weeded out, things will not return to normal. Since the supply of real estate is too much for the demand, the real estate industry as a whole has a structure that makes it impossible to generate profits. I think that the story up to this point has reached a stage where many people in Japan know about it. As for what happens next, Japan is going through something similar. The real estate industry is a debt-driven industry. For some reason, it takes a long time to make real estate and sell it and make a profit. In the meantime, a lot of money flows into the real estate industry from banks because the company is managed by borrowing money. When the industry reorganization comes to the real estate industry, the banks that lend money will also be sorted out. It is believed that China will eventually enter an era in which problems will spread to banks and banks will be eliminated. In such a way, a story came out in June of this year. Guangzhou Bank is a bank based in Guangdong, China. By the way, this bank is the largest bank in terms of asset size. It has become a hot topic that this bank has been forced to execute. However, the compulsory execution itself is 2,469,800 yuan, which is about 2.5 million yuan, which is about 50 million yen in Japanese yen. It's not a big amount for the bank, so the damage to the bank isn't big, but the problem is that the bank is being forced to execute it. The Guangzhou Bank is currently attracting attention, and the bank's performance is being investigated in depth. The biggest point of attention is what is going on with the bad debts that this bank has. This bank also lends money to the real estate industry, but part of the debt has become bad debt. By the way, the definition of bad debt is that even if all the assets of the debtor are converted into money and returned, it will be a bad debt if all the money lent is not returned. The other is that if a non-performing loan is defined as a non-performing loan without paying interest by the due date, the non-performing loan has increased by 60% compared to last year, according to statistics. In other words, the real estate industry in China is currently in a much worse situation than it is said to be in Japan, but the impact is already reaching the banks. I borrow a large amount of money from the bank, but I can't pay it back, so the bank's bad debt is increasing. And when it comes to whether this situation is going to improve or get worse, it has nothing to do with the efforts of banks. Isn't it a story about what will happen to the real estate industry in the future? As long as there is too much supply for demand, the real estate industry as a whole will decline. There may be some that survive in the real estate industry as a whole, but there is no doubt that the performance as a whole will deteriorate. If that happens, the person who lends the money will also be affected. By the way, Guangzhou Bank's non-performing loans are increasing, and its business performance is not good. Looking at the performance in 2022, sales will increase by more than 17 billion yuan. Compared to 2021, it has increased by 3.56%. Sales are increasing, so I thought it was a good trend, but the profit decreased by about 3.3 billion yuan. In terms of rate, it has decreased by 18.58%. Increasing sales and decreasing profits is a problem for companies. Some quick-minded people say that Bank of Guangzhou is all right, but Bank of Guangzhou is thinking of listing its stocks to raise funds. The bank has been trying to IPO for 10 years and has been unsuccessful. In March of this year, the prospectus was published to raise more than 9.4 billion yuan. So what is attracting attention now is what will happen with this IPO. Due to the compulsory execution this time, many people have paid attention to the financial details, so it is believed that the IPO of Guangzhou Bank, which has been trying to list stocks for 10 years, will be derailed. Looking around the current Chinese economy as a whole, I believe that the time will come when the real estate industry will be consolidated as a major direction. The impact will inevitably extend to financial institutions, so even if the financial industry does not go bankrupt, there is a high possibility that we will enter an era of mergers between banks. Under such circumstances, it will depend on the political power to provide more funds to the Bank of Guangzhou. Looking at the world, there are many more attractive investment destinations besides China, so at least I don't think that funds will flow to Guangzhou Bank. If you continue to fund zombie companies while the Chinese economy is in a slump, your money will disappear just to cover the bad debts. If that happens, it will not lead to economic development, which will further worsen the Chinese economy. That's all for now. See you next time.